Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order for the regular City Council virtual meeting of Monday, June 8th, 2020. If we could all say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Roland. I'll come back to him. Bizzard.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here.
Weiss.
Here.
Rhines.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Roland.
Here.
Thank you, Barb. I am looking for approval of the agenda for this evening. If nobody has any changes that they would like to make.
Bellinger would like to make the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Noah.
Second, Rhines.
Thank you, Dan. Barb, will you call a roll on that, please?
Roland.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right, we have an opportunity for audience participation. Hallie, do we have anybody additional on the on Zoom this evening?
I do not see anybody else present.
All right, thank you. Next, I'm looking for approval of the council meeting minutes of May 26th, unless there's any changes to be made.
Motion to approve, Weiss.
Thank you.
Motion to second, Bellinger.
All right, thank you. We had 2 seconds. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Thank you, Barb. No, we have accounts payable for this evening. You had an opportunity to go over the packet.
Yes, I did. And I did have a chance to send out an email to Corey and responded to some questions relating to check 7, to several of the checks. But I'd like to make a motion to approve check 73216 dated 5/22 of 2020 through check 73245 dated 5/29 of 2020 in a total of $25,899.31. And Corey he did send out an email responding to those questions, so hopefully everybody got a chance to review them. And if there's
Does anybody have any questions regarding accounts payable this evening? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Noah.
Second, Rhines.
Thank you, Dan. Barb, will you call the roll?
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving right along to our action items, it does look like a long list, but the first 4 are appointments to different boards. First, we have an appointment of Brandon Lanyon to the Planning Commission for a term to expire 6/30 of 2023.
I make a motion to appoint Brandon Lanyon to the Planning Commission for a term to expire 6/30 of 2023. Rhines.
Thank you, Dan.
Second, Smith.
Thank you, Jean. Will you call the roll?
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy. Gilroy. Roland.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Smith. Smith.
Yes, sorry.
Gilroy.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have appointment of Robert McPherson to the Economic Development Corporation, TIPA 2A, TIPA 2B for a term 6/30 of 2025.
Make a motion to appoint Robert McPherson to the Economic Development Corporation, TIFA 2A and TIFA 2B for a term to expire 6/30 of 2025. Rhines.
Thank you, Dan.
Second, Smith.
Thank you, Jean. Barb, will you call the roll?
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Okay. Our next is an appointment of John McGee to the Planning Commission for a term to expire 6/30/2023.
Make a motion to appoint John McGee to the Planning Commission for a term to expire 6/30/2023. Rhines.
Thank you, Dan.
Second, Smith.
Thank you, Jean. Barb, will you call the roll?
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Okay, next we have appointment of Emily Sutton Smith to the Downtown Development Authority for a term to expire 6/30 of 2024.
I make a motion to appoint Emily Sutton Smith to the Downtown Development Authority for a term to expire 6/30 of 2024. Rhines.
Thank you.
Second, Smith.
Thank you. Barb, will you call the roll?
Gilroy.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next is our resolution adopting our fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for the city of Williamston. The action is at the very top of page 8E, page 1. So I'm looking for a motion to move that, or if there's any discussion that, any questions regarding this.
There's no discussion. And Mrs. Bellinger, I'd like to make a motion, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for the city of Williamston, appropriating the amounts necessary for the municipal purposes and providing for the levy of the amount necessary to be raised by ad valorem taxes upon real and personal property for municipal purposes.
Thank you, Noah.
Second, Smith.
Thank you, Jean. If there is no discussion or questions, Barb, will you call the roll?
Roland.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes. Okay, next up, action item 8F, an ordinance to amend the City of Williamston zoning, or City of Williamston zoning ordinance to revise Article 4 to the Planned Residential Development Regulations Article 5 as to accessory structure regulations, Article 6 as to parking regulations, and Article 7 as to landscaping regulations. I just want to say thank you to our planning commission for working on these and getting these ready for council to adopt.
I just wanted to say, I was very happy to see the change to the decks. We had that came before ZBA last year with the exact language that they're striking out, and I think that clears up a lot with that. I was happy to see that was in there.
Thank you, Dan.
I guess since no further, I'll make a motion, Bellinger. A motion to approve a first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Williamston zoning ordinance to revise Article 4 as to planned residential development regulations, Article 5 as to accessory structure regulations, Article 6 as to parking regulations, and Article 7 as to landscaping regulations. And I have attended all the planning commissions as a sub, so have an opportunity to go through all the processes.
Thank you, Noah.
Second, Rhines.
Thank you, Dan. If there's no further discussion, Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Roland, did you have a question?
Just a statement. You know, one of the things that I've always thought of and wondered, you know, coming from planning commission to, you know, council and, you know, what happened there when you're a recommending body up to council is, you know, one of the things, I don't know if it's possible and how we do things, but if it would be possible to actually include, you know, a modified transcript even of what planning discussed, how they got to where they got to in this package. So council could review what was discussed if, you know, we weren't in attendance. So, you know, we just have a little more background knowledge and how they got to the decision they got. I mean, while I agree with all these changes right now, I just something to think about going forward. If that's, you know, Corey, I don't know if that's a change we can make to just give a little more color to, you know, council and how planning got to that decision. Because I know when I was on planning for a few years there were a lot of heady conversations that occurred with a lot of great information that, you know, might be useful to council when these come up to council to vote on.
That's a great suggestion, Jeff. I would recommend that as well if we can do that. And that would be something possibly Hallie would be able to provide us with.
Tammy? Oh,
Yes.
Excuse me, this is also an opportunity at on your agenda 12, subcommittee reports. That's also an opportunity to plug it in there
Yes.
as well.
Yep. Yeah, that is why we added that spot to the agenda, so that we could have each representative from their boards give us an update. But I do like Jeff's request, when there are significant things that do happen that changes language, if we could have something to see how it transpired, that would be helpful.
Do we think that adding the minutes from the planning commission meetings where the recommendations were discussed, would that be sufficient, or do we want something more thorough than the meeting minutes?
Hallie, would you be able to provide us with a set of meeting minutes as an example, so we could maybe review that to see if that's what we, if that would satisfy?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great. Jeff, how does that sound? Roland?
Yeah, it sounds
All
good.
right.
It's just something that's a little more for the record, right?
Yep, I agree. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
So we did have a motion. We did have a second.
Mayor Gilroy,
Yes.
Manager Schmidt would like to speak.
Corey, go ahead.
Corey Schmidt would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Just try not to talk over people. I'd like to take some time with staff to figure out how we can accomplish this. One thing I will note is that with this most recent process, we started off with a work session. And so there were no minutes of that work session. It was probably an hour to an hour and a half work session with a presentation and a lot of discussion that, again, wasn't recorded. And so the planning commission feedback we got from that meeting was that they really liked that work session approach when there wasn't an otherwise action item to take care of that evening. And so, we've kind of proceeded as if though that would be our new process for introducing these text amendments, is to start it off with a work session. And so let us think on that. There may be a way for us to simply do a better job of sharing the materials and the presentations and basically the work product that went into those. And that's my initial thoughts as far as providing more information on that. We do attempt in the memos, in this particular example, in the packet, we included the staff work that went into the last recommendation process, where we attempted to give a little bit of background on what went into the decision-making process. And so we can look at that too and try to bolster those things in response to some of the questions here.
Thank you, Corey. I do appreciate that. I do think the follow-up during the subcommittee committee reports, during our council meetings, it definitely would be helpful. I definitely would like to see maybe the minutes when there's action that's going to be moved forward up to the council. Yes, I recognize that we do not capture a work session. We don't document it, but hopefully maybe if we just start with this approach of meeting minutes and a report from the sitting council member that is on that committee, that will be helpful. We don't get a lot of these that come through. It just really is dependent on what planning's working on. I know that they did have a couple of items as a part of their for the year to look at some language and see if it needed to be changed. So I think it's going to be as these items come about. I don't know if we need to come up with anything super formal yet, Corey, but we can at least start with what we've talked about this evening. So with that being said, we do have a motion and a second on the table. If there's no further discussion, Barb, will you call the roll?
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Roland.
Okay, moving on to action item G, it is our agreement for waterborne pavement marking placement. And we do have some information here in the packet. Corey, would you like to follow up on this?
Yes, just a brief introduction. Typically on an annual basis, Ingham County Road Department, in their process of doing pavement markings on Williamston Road and Lynn Road, they have to come through the city limits. And so we've partnered with them at a fairly minor cost for them to do that work in the city limits. One thing I'll note is that we think it's been a couple years since they've actually done this, even though council approved one 2 years ago. The work was not completed. We didn't have that reflected in our billing system. And so those pavement markings are going on about 3 years old now before they've come through. There also is a note in there that the cost does not include the minor time that the Ingham County Road Department does, basically inspecting the work. And looking back at previous years, that has typically ranged from $100 to $200. So you're probably looking at a total cost somewhere between $1,500 and $1,600, including that time estimate that's not included in the pavement striping cost.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Corey regarding this?
I do, Bizzard.
Okay, Blizzard, go ahead.
My question for you is, does this include the crosswalks and everything that are on this stretch of road?
No, John, it just includes the center lines and the edge
fog
lines.
Okay.
Who has responsibility for crosswalks, Scott? You're still on mute. There you go, Scott.
I couldn't get it to come up on my screen. The city has responsibility for that stuff. The county, when they go through, they're only interested in the stuff that their trucks get really quick.
Okay.
They don't do the crosswalks, and they don't go in and do the arrows, turn arrows, and those types of things.
Do we have crosswalk repainting on our schedule at all this year?
Yeah, it would be in
Okay.
the next fiscal year.
Okay, so after July 1st.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the pavement marking?
Just Bellinger.
Yes.
Corey, do we need to adjust that amount then from the 1383 not to exceed like 15 or 1600 then if you're waiting for the additional 200 to come up? What's your thoughts?
So the contract itself authorizes the 1383, and then it has a clause there that says this estimate does not include the engineering. And so I think you could amend the motion that's requested to simply say to enter into the contract.
Okay.
And
All right. I would recommend that you indicate that it's for an amount not to exceed $1,600 to take into
Thank you,
account
Tim.
the additional amount.
Or is 1,600 enough to ensure that it's, properly handled, or should we make it 1,700 just to be safe?
based on what I've seen historically, I think the 1,600 should do it.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Ingham County Road Department for the 2020 waterborne pavement marking placement at a cost not to exceed $1,600.
Thank you, Jean.
Second, Bizzard.
Thank you, John. If there's no further discussion, Barb, will you call the roll?
Bizzard. Bizzard.
Yes. Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Our last action item for this evening is the spring 2020 pavement patching. Scott, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you. Working with Corey on the budgeting and so forth, we wanted to wait until we had some better certainty as far as what was happening with the revenue sharing for the roads this year. And Corey provided me with the information so that we were able to, get some paving done just before the fiscal year ends. So there's 3 requested actions. One of them is to approve pavement repairs with one-way for various street patches and overlays in local streets. And then the second one is for major streets. And then the third request is that we're going to not use all of the stuff that was allocated for sidewalks in local streets. So that provides that $7,000 to make local street pavement patching up to $7,000. In the attached memo, we put a list of the streets that we think we're going to be able to do this work at. And basically, we're going to really focus this year on doing some overlays. There are several streets that we've been spending a tremendous amount of money doing cold patching in, and we're going to overlay some of those areas to buy some more time. Several of these streets really need to be reconstructed, but we would rather have give the city some time and some extended life in those areas until we have some better certainty as to what's going to happen with our proposed road reconstruction program we're going to go to the taxpayers on.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you for the list. I did speak with Corey about this earlier this week as we were going over agenda items. And I think you guys have outlined here, what is most important to get done. So I appreciate your efforts and also the fact that, we're working with, questionable funding and uncertainty. So I appreciate that. Corey, did you want to follow up with anything?
Yeah, I would just note that our major and local street funds, when we went over the projections at our May 4th work session, we budgeted for 15% reductions in revenue sharing, in Act 51 funding. So far, those have come in at 9.5% lower and 11% lower with 1 month to go. And so we don't know what that final month is going to be, but based on that trend, I felt comfortable moving forward with these recommendations. The amounts that are suggested is what we originally budgeted, and it basically was the last thing that we could hold off on if we had much bigger revenue losses before June 30th. And so all of those factors went into basically delaying until this meeting, trying to move forward with these. But we're in a good spot based on what we've seen so far with Act 51.
Great. Thank you, Corey. All right, I'm going to open it up. Who has questions?
I have a question. If you're going to be doing an overlay, are we looking at structure adjustments within the roadway?
Good question, John. The vast majority of these areas, in fact, I'm not aware of anything that we have to do a structure adjustment on. You do note that there is one structure on Jackson Street that basically the pavement has sunk in a big circle around it, like a reverse donut, basically. And that area is going to be filled in. Our plow trucks have problems with that area. That was a very deep excavation back in the 1990s, and I think what's happened is just some long-term settlement in that area, and that this overlay should last pretty good in that spot. Other locations are like a good example would be Berkshire Drive. We can't even do street sweeping in some of those sections anymore because the pavement is really starting to unravel.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm unmuted here.
Nope, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yep,
Well,
sure can.
Some very strange thing just popped up. I'm just wondering why there's a distinction between major and local streets. Is there something? Is there a reason for that?
I'll let you follow up with that.
Yeah, there's, well, actually, Corey might be able to explain it better than I, but our road system is broken into major streets and local streets by classification. And that has to do with working with the state and federal funding. Major roads qualify in some circumstances for federal and state funds for grants and things like that. There are some major roads that don't qualify for the grants, but the city can still designate them as major. And what it means is that when the gas taxes and so forth, the Act 51 funds come, you get a higher percentage of funding in those areas. So we try and get as many streets as we can justified for major streets. Local streets would be like your neighborhoods.
Yeah, so if you had leftover on major, you couldn't use that for local?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so all right, that makes sense. Thanks.
Unless you guys made a budget adjustment, but really what we're trying to do here is hit these as close as we can.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'm looking for somebody to make a motion to move these actions forward.
I think the birds already did at Noah's house, so.
You want me to? You guys want me to mute? I can mute the birds. It's beautiful out there.
I can do it. Motion to approve Roland here of pavement repairs from One Way Asphalt and Excavating Inc. of Williamston for not to exceed $27,000 for local streets, which consist of Orchard Street, Georgia Street, Lloyd Street, Berkshire Drive, and Quinlan Street and Spalding Street, as well as approval of pavement repairs from One Way Asphalt and Excavating Inc. Not to exceed $25,000 in major streets for consisting of Jackson Street, North Putnam Street, and Lynn Road possibly, as well as decrease local street sidewalk department by $7,000, increase local street surface maintenance department by $7,000.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Roland, your second.
Thank you, Noah. If there's no further questions or discussion, I will ask Barb to call the roll.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That
I
concludes our
have
action items.
I have a quick
Go ahead,
question.
John.
When do you expect that work to begin, Scott?
One way is basically waiting for us to give them the green light. I anticipate that it's going to happen before June 30th. They've been doing work in other locations around town in the last week and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, are you going to need my signature on anything for those?
I don't think so at the moment, but we'll contact you if we
Okay,
do.
if you do, just let me know.
Okay.
All right, now we're moving on to our discussion item. Hopefully everybody was able to read through the memo that Corey and Scott both provided regarding the observation well abandonment. I was able to speak with Corey about this as we went over the agenda for this week. So I asked him to put this together. So I'm going to turn it right over to Corey and Scott.
Corey, who begins? You, me?
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Let's see if I can do this. Share screen.
I just have to allow it. Just a second.
Yeah, go ahead and allow that. How do we know when that comes up?
Just a second. Sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble here.
All right. Can you guys see that yet?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I guess Hallie, is it working or is it something that I should just go on with?
Why don't you go ahead and give us the backstory to this, and if she
I'll
can
do that.
figure out how to
Okay.
share your screen, possibly.
Yep. So if that comes up, we'll show a couple things out
You
of
should
that.
be able to do it now.
Okay. Try to get down. It's telling me I can't share screen while other participants is sharing.
Okay.
Might be because of the closed captioning.
Could be. All right. Well, we'll move on without it. So, there's two observation wells that we've, I guess, talked about in the past, and some of you may not recall that, so I'll give you a little bit of history. Our well field down by the water treatment plant off of Lynn Road, the original well field was more of a pie-shaped thing, and it didn't touch Lynn Road, but it was adjacent to Deer Creek. All of that land is in floodplain. And back in the 1960s, the city first investigated that area for municipal wells. And they found that there was a good sandstone bedrock aquifer in that area to get water from. So 3 wells were developed on that initial property, well 5, well 6, and well 8. And those wells were installed from the 70s, and one of them in the late 80s, and one of them again in the 90s. But back in the 1970s, in 1971, a couple observation wells were drilled, and those observation wells were not necessarily constructed to the standards that they're constructed to nowadays. One of them got lost in the track of time in some overgrowth area. And during our construction project to put the water plant in and then rebuild those 3 wells because they were built too low in the floodplain and were in danger of getting flooded actually into the wells during a 100-year flood event. So that was part of that project we did back in 2011 and 12. Well, one of those observation wells was damaged and unbeknownst to the contractor, and it sat that way for about a month and a half, and contaminated well 5 and well 8 with the surface drainage that went down into the well. So once that was discovered, it took us a couple months of a lot of extreme measures to get those 2 wells cleaned up. That was the well the 2-inch observation well that was near well 8. And that one has been named Observation Well 71A historically. That one's about 88 feet away from the production well. The other well, 71B, is about 60 feet away from well 6. And what we have learned in the course of the project back in 2011 and other cleanup work that we've been doing more recently and investigation work is that there is a very strong hydraulic connection between these observation wells and our production wells. Sandstone aquifer or aquifers typically have bedding planes and fracture zones. So a bedding plane would be like, if you're looking at your screen here, you've got a segment of sandstone, and then you've got other sandstone stacked on top. Well, that space in between those layers is a bedding plane. Oftentimes the rock is not as cemented, and it can have actually horizontal fracture zones that go a pretty long distance. And there's also vertical fractures that happen in our area. We've seen that in video camera work down the wells. So why does this all matter? Well, we've even, during a cleaning process, one of the things that you do is you take a small pipe, you push it down into the well, you pump air into there, and as the air bubbles to the surface, it actually produces water out of the well, but it pressurizes the area. When we were doing that to observation well 71A, we were producing water out of 2 nearby observation wells while that was going on. When they did the project back in 2011 and rebuilt well 8, when they were cleaning well 8, developing it with air, we had water being produced out of these observation wells. So it's very well documented that there are fracture zones that horizontally go several hundred feet in different directions, and that these wells are very hydraulically connected. That's a good thing to produce water. It's a bad thing if we have one of these observation wells that we're concerned about is not built right or can be compromised for contamination down into the aquifer. Okay, so we've been looking for closure, abandonment, proper abandonment of these 2 observation wells for quite some time now. The other well that's by well 6, that one has actually been hit by vehicles several times. DTE has ran over it, and because there's some power lines over in that area, and we've come back there and found them bent over with tracks going right over to the poles and stuff. A former city manager backed into it one time. So it's not located in a good location. It's just about 1.5 feet away from the gravel road, right where the entrance is into well 6. You have to turn around there all the time with vehicles. So that's not very well located. It's not that we can move the road because there's nearby wetlands and areas like that we can't really disturb. So we're kind of stuck with where things are at. So we had planned in this year's budget to abandon these 2 wells and do some investigation of doing some downhole camera work. And then we had a special technique that we were going to use to abandon these, of dumping a mixture of pea stone with a material that's called bentonite. And it's a mined dry clay that they mine out west, and then they process it, and it comes in small pellets, and you can dump it in there. And when it gets in water, it hydrates and swells, but it won't travel into the fractures. It'll just swell and seal, basically. Okay. So that was the method that we were intending to abandon these wells with in the open rock hole portion. Once we got that plug up into the casings, which is the steel pipe that goes down into the aquifer before it's in the open rock hole, we were going to seal the casing part with a slurry of cement. But you don't want to just dump a bunch of cement down here in an open rock hole that has these fracture zones, because the cement will just keep traveling out into the fracture zones and then seal off the valuable production of the aquifer. And it has happened before, specifically south of Williamston in the Jackson area, where people were trying to do some abandonment work, and they actually cemented the production wells with the pumps right in the holes. So this is a very delicate and tricky thing, because I'm very concerned. Our investment in each one of these wells is approximately $500,000. So if we had to abandon one of these production wells and go get another one, that's the ballpark of the infrastructure that we're trying to protect that investment of. So in play was about $1 million of our water system here that we were concerned about. We were very successful with the observation well that was close to well 8. It worked according to plan because we had a solid casing pipe going to the surface. When we got over to the one that's by well 6, we found that the casing pipe, and we knew that there was a blockage about 40 feet down. We couldn't figure out what was going on there with the camera. So we had to get another company in that had small tools that could fit inside a 2-inch casing pipe. So now you're dealing with tools that are about 1 inch and some odd in diameter, going down there with itty bitty little drill bits and so forth. Well, we got through that blockage. We got down into or below the 40-foot level, but then they found that they had to put drilling fluid in just to keep sand from coming into it. Well, as we were also doing some of that work, we started getting bubbling at the surface, at the ground surface. So what that led us to find is that the original 2-inch casing does not have what you would consider good integrity of whatever the grout was that they used between the 2-inch pipe and the original borehole. That's very concerning, because this is in a floodplain. I have seen floodwaters traveling across the road before. In fact, it happened 2 days before we were out there doing this work, not at that observation well, but 50 feet down the road, with the flooding event that we had back in May. So I'm not trying to scare everybody, but I'm also very concerned. So that we don't want to ignore this situation, because the evidence shows that there could be the potential for a conduit of surface water to get down into the aquifer. The aquifer is usually protected by a clay layer and so forth. But when a borehole has gone down through that and isn't properly cemented in place, then there is a possibility that water can go down. If we can get water up at the surface, you could also get water to go down. We also found evidence back or at a lower level, about the 85 to 90 foot level, that casing pipe still might be compromised down at that level as well. The interface between the upper clay and sand deposits and the bedrock, the stone actually, is around 40 feet in this area. And the drilling log of well 6 that is nearby and this observation well shows that at that 40 to 45 foot level, there could be evidence from the driller's logs that there was like a shaly clay deposit, not clay, shaly type of, and coal, okay? And so that could have been acidic, and that could have attacked the steel casing pipe all these years, and that could be why that there's a compromised casing in that area that we're finding now. So all this stuff adds up to a problem. The construction technique that was unusual was they drilled a hole that was about 4 inches deep. The borehole was about 4 inches in diameter, I'm sorry, all the way down into the bedrock all at once. And then they put the casing in afterwards, which is not the way we would do this now. Nowadays, you would drill down your casing into the top part of the bedrock, and you would put in a smaller casing pipe. You would cement around the casing pipe, and then you would drill out through the casing into the rock hole after you've sealed the casing in place. Okay? They didn't do that. They drilled this hole all the way to the full depth of 227 feet, I believe. And they put in a 92 or 95, one of them's 92, one of them 95, the 2 observation wells, for the depth of the casing. And they used kind of like a syringe would have like a seal at the syringe to push through the outer part of the syringe where the plunger part would be. They used something similar to that. That's called a cement basket, we believe. And then, so they pushed the casing in with the seal at the bottom, and then they tried to trimmy the cement in above that seal. And for whatever reason, we don't believe that worked. Some of that cement might have traveled into some of the fractured stone. There's no way for us to really know. But the evidence is there that it didn't get sealed properly. The small diameter casing is too small for us to work with and get the casing out or drilled out without going with a much larger technique and going down around the outside of this. And that's what we think we need to do. There's a rotary sonic type method that instead of using drilling fluids, which can go over and mess with our production well as well, it uses vibrations and sonic to get that outer casing around this old casing. We can then remove this, and then we can abandon it in a manner similar to the other one with the P-stone and plug, and then seal it off properly. The bad news is, to do that is, we believe it's an estimate of around $27,000. Is a specialized equipment. Not too many companies in our area do that, but we did also find out if we were to do it with a rotary method using drilling fluid, that it actually might cost a couple grand more than that. We just got an estimate today that's a little bit higher in cost. And it's not the preferred technique because it uses a drilling mud fluid, which can travel through the formation. I've talked a lot. I guess I'll let you ask any questions that you've got.
Yep. All right. Who's got questions?
Sun coming on, you know.
Jeff
Hey, Scott.
Weiss.
Scott, you when you were talking, you said they put this down, they did this. Who is they? Was it a contractor?
Yeah, back in 1971, there was a company that did a lot of drilling in municipal well fields named Lane Northern, and that is who installed the observation wells.
Okay. And you said it was damaged by a contractor at one point. Is there any link to the damage by a contractor to this issue?
No, that was actually at the other location, and that damage, basically the records of where that was located was not really known to people that were currently at the city, and that was all overgrown, and a 2-inch steel pipe sticking up about 3 foot in the air, we believe just looked like a stub of, a tree. And
Right.
the contractor didn't even know that it had gotten knocked over, or even a fence post, It wasn't labeled, it wasn't protected, it was just a pipe sticking up out of the ground with a cap on top.
Sure. So I guess my ultimate question is, in your outline was great. So you're recommending that we take action and fix it, because it sounds like if we don't take action, it could be kind of catastrophic to our water system. Is that correct?
That's correct. At some point, we would be concerned about even operating well 6.
It seems to me just 27,000. Why it's a lot of money, and it sounds like action should be taken sooner than later, like immediately. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes, basically. I mean, sooner than later is we'd like to proceed with trying to get things lined up with the company. We can't necessarily come up with a good way to bid this because there's only so many people that have this, and the other well drillers that our hydrogeologists talked to basically recommended to work with Stearns because they have the right equipment for this. But we did at least get comparable pricing to do it with the other method. And I shared that email with Corey earlier today. And what was it? Corey, do you remember what that was?
29,000.
29,000. So it was, it basically gave us a cost comparative that it's competitive pricing.
Gotcha. And I guess this one's for Corey. Corey, I guess it's my feeling we should act upon this quickly, so there's not a catastrophic issue with our water system. But where would we, the 27,000 as it sits now, would we fund this?
So it goes without saying that it's not budgeted. One of the ideas that I've had is we have approximately $32,000 that will be left from our 2017 capital improvement bond that is tied to the water fund. At the May 4th budget work session, our intent was to use that for this West End water main issue that we have between Old Nation and Michigan Woodworking. This is, I think, more pressing than that at the time being. And so that would be our first resource, knowing that we still have this other issue lingering. The final piece of this is that last year we raised our readiness to serve fee by 16%, which was a big number. But the purpose of that was to build our what's called our RRI account, which is your replacement and repair reserve for these situations. If this had happened 3 years from now, I'd have a lot better feeling, and it would be, that's what it's there for. But because we're only a year into that, we're still building that reserve up. So to bottom line it, we would look first to the 2017 capital bond and use what's remaining of that for this emerging issue. But that's going to result in us needing to be flexible and creative with the other planned improvements after July 1st.
Okay. And I just have a couple more comments. I'll open it up, but I would not be in favor, nor would I support raising any other fees for water whatsoever. But I think we need to act upon this. So after anyone else has discussion, I think we should give serious thought to passing a motion tonight so we can go ahead with these repairs. But that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else have questions for Scott?
I have a question for Corey. With the in that budget work session when we discussed that the work over with the capital, what was left of the capital improvement bond that was creating a loop system over by Old Nation and Mid-Michigan Woodworking and whatnot. It's something we want to do and we will still need to do in the future, but if that is pushed off 6 months to a year, that's not a major issue, correct?
I think comparing these two projects, this well observation is better. I would say it's going to be my intent to try to figure a way to do that sooner than 6 to 12 months, that other project.
Scott, I have a question for you. You've had somebody give you the quote and everything. If we were to move forward with adding this to the agenda this evening, taking action on it, you feel this is something you could get on the schedule relatively soon within these summer months to get this taken care of?
I believe so. I think you're talking on the order of weeks to get the work done.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're doing this, so that we can get it done during the good weather. Certainly wouldn't want it to get into the fall months where we start having, rain and typical, October, late summer weather. So, and how long would this approximately take if we got this scheduled?
Probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 days.
Okay. I am in agreement with Councilman Weiss. I think this is something we do need to act on because this, involves a water source, and we certainly don't want something to happen that would affect, the community.
In order to act on
So
it tonight,
Hallie, go ahead, Dan.
in order to act on it tonight, do we need to make a motion to change the agenda to move this to an action item?
That's what I was just going to ask Hallie. We would have to make.
Yes, you would have to make a motion to change the agenda. Also,
Friendly amendment to add. Sorry, Hallie?
Jeff Roland also has his hand up.
Yes. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think he might be frozen.
He's on mute now.
Frozen.
His hand up, but it's not.
Or he's frozen, yeah. Add this as action item I. I see
need a
Barb
motion?
shaking her head, yes.
So yes, you would want to make that motion.
I'll make a motion to move this from a discussion item to action item I. Reference observation well abandonment at the city Welfield.
Second.
Thank you both.
Who
There's
was
no other
second?
discussion.
Yep.
Barb, will you
Alright,
call a
Barb.
roll for that?
I have a question.
Oh, Noah, go ahead.
By putting this off for 2 weeks, how much is that going to put you behind? If we just put it and Scott makes a call and let them know that it's going to be on the next agenda, to give them a prep time to do a 3 to 5 day install. Is it that much of a hurry to delay it for another 2 weeks?
Scott, I'm going to defer to you for that answer. I don't know how
I'm just
unstable it
asking.
is.
I don't.
No, I'm not trying to make a presentation to cause people to make a rushed decision. In our discussions, Corey and I looked at it, and he said, "Well, let's put a discussion item in here and explain it to council and see what they want to do." I don't think that even if I told them tomorrow morning to get this done, that it would happen by the end of the week, that they would get started. Right. There's, it has to get into their food chain a little bit. However, contractors sometimes, if there is something that's an absolute emergency, will put other projects aside. I don't know that we're at that case at the moment.
No, but I don't think, you never know what other municipalities are going through. And at least to get in their queue for something, if some other municipality should, have an event or, a catastrophic event that would push our work back or whatever, I I can see why we could wait another 2 weeks to our next council meeting, but if we go ahead and approve it now, it just gives you the opportunity to get into their queue before some other municipality does.
Jeff Roland has his hand raised.
Yes, Jeff, you're back, but he's on mute. Nope, he's there now. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, sorry. We have a couple Zoom meetings going on in this household tonight. But in any event, I guess what was sort of lost on me was understanding what's the downside of not acting. I'm sort of missing I hear words like catastrophic, and I'm thinking of like the Dustin Hoffman Outbreak, movie, and COVID-19. Like we're all gonna how serious is it really from not acting? Just to understand the opposite side of inaction. What does that really mean? Is it really that severe where it's catastrophic, or is it something that can wait a year or two? Or and because I'm not an engineer, but certainly just want to understand in terms of, can our water treatment plant handle any sort of leaching that occurs or anything that happens there for some time? So is there a way that it can be explained? So I don't know, to steal a line from Denzel Washington in Philadelphia, like I'm a second grader.
No, good question. Our system is not built as a surface water treatment system. Okay. So the fact that we're approved, our wells are approved in a protected aquifer situation. And what we're seeing with this observation well is that that's been compromised. So what is the risk? The risk is surface water getting down into the aquifer, getting drawn in and pulled into the production well, and we would get positive bacteria tests and that type of thing. It can happen. It did happen at well 5 and well 8 when the other observation well was broken, and we took surface water in at that location, and we were down without the use of those wells for about 3.5, 4 months. That can happen in this location. Flooding does go over the road. Like I mentioned, it happened just the days before we did this work out there. We had to hold off starting the work. And that was before we knew that there was this ability to have the water bubbling to the surface when we were pressurizing this observation well. That was evidence that it can do just the opposite during a flood event. And if you're pumping from well 6, while there's surface water flooding around this observation well, you could draw it into well 6. Does that answer your question sufficiently, Jeff?
Well, and just one follow-up. So why doesn't our water treatment and the way that we treat the water once it is in there not take care of any dangers that do occur as a result of that?
To some degree, the chlorination that we do and the pressure filters that we do can help that treatment process. But if we were to be built as a surface water treatment system, this would not be the process that would be allowed. It's a much different process of coagulation, flocculation, other types of filtration and so forth.
In other words, it's just the way that our treatment plant is set up. There is some hesitancy that it's properly going to address any bacteria that gets in there, and that's a risk you see. Is that accurate?
I believe so, yes. We're a groundwater treatment plant, and we're not intended as a surface water treatment plant.
I think the other part of Jeff's question was, what is the realistic time that we could wait to do this? And from what I'm hearing from you, Scott. We do need to do it sooner rather than later because of contamination possibility. We don't know exactly, we don't know the weather in advance or when we're going to have flooding events that could affect this. So this is not something that can be put off until a year from now or 2 years from now.
If we were to try and wait that length of time, I believe that Eagle would tell us that we need to decommission that well right now until that's done.
Okay. So then we would lose a water source
Correct.
for that well. Okay.
Replacing that water source is upwards of $500,000.
That we do not have.
Now don't confuse what I said. I guess I wouldn't say decommission. I would say shut it down and not use it until this is fixed.
So,
Right.
I'd like to call for the vote for this to be moved to an action item.
All right, we have a motion to move this from a discussion item up to action item 8I. Do I have a support?
Support.
Who was that?
That was Bizzard, because I believe
Sure.
Weiss made the motion.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this?
Noah had a question.
Yeah, the only discussion I would have, Scott, you indicated that several people have run over the pipe or the encampment. Can we put a small flag or some sort of indication on it so that it's identifiable, that won't happen in the future?
Yeah. Well, we actually temporarily had extended it higher, painted it orange, and it still got hit. And then we put construction barricades around it.
Okay, great.
Just for PM safety. So, okay. Thank you.
Barb, will you call the roll to move this to action item 8I, please?
Barb, you're muted.
I was muted, sorry. Roland,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Um,
So Corey, Hallie, Scott, I'm assuming that the motion then would be to move forward with the observation well abandonment with cost not to exceed $30,000. Would that be a safe amount, Scott?
I think that would be prudent because we need to probably give some allotment for working with Ed Everett at Strata Environmental, who's been helping. He's a hydrogeologist. And actually, not to take any more time with this, but Ed has been working in this well field with us on and off since, he worked at Keck, which used to be outside of town there on the west end of town. So he's familiar with it. He's really good at what he does. Between his background in hydrogeology and then my background with the emphasis that I did in my master's degree, we have really analyzed this to death, and we don't see a better alternative here, just to provide you a little more comfort.
Okay.
I'm Madam Mayor, this is Weiss. I'm ready to call the question, but before I configure the motion, and this is for Mr. Perone, would we have to mention who the vendor will be, or can the motion be crafted vendor to the suiting of the city engineer?
It would be preferable to identify the contractor for the expenditure. But certainly you could make it generic at this point and then perhaps ratify the actual contract at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Thank you, Mr. Perone.
May I call a question?
Yes, you
I
may.
have one
Mayor
question.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Dan Rhines.
Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Tim Perone is going to, at some point, have an opportunity to see whatever contract we enter into, just I know it's most of it's all general language and all that, but we're kind of running quick here. But at some point, Tim will get a peek at that, correct? And he'll have all of our regular language and.
Scott, I would assume that yes, you would be
Yeah.
Having Tim
Yep.
take a look at this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Sorry.
And then John Bizzard, did I hear your voice?
No, you did not.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Then, Mr. Weiss, will you proceed, please?
I'd like to make a motion to proceed with oil or on the observation well abandonment with a vendor that is designated by the city engineer to amount not to exceed $30,000 and to be reviewed by the city attorney prior to the work that will be done.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. If there's no
That was
further,
Bizzard.
thank
That was
you.
Bizzard, by the way.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on that, I will ask Barb to call the roll, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
I want to just say thanks to Scott for being so thorough on this and taking the time to explain it to us, especially because I don't know, a lot of us have engineering backgrounds or whatever. I know Dan and John and some of you do kind of, have that background, but I appreciate the fact that you went into great detail with this, Scott, because I think we really have to understand, what's being done, especially when it's affecting the water for our residents. Moving right along, correspondence received. We had correspondence from the Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy regarding our cross connection control plan. That was correspondence that you can take time to read. If you do have questions, you could follow up with Scott. Moving along, we have our department head reports. Corey, thank you for your memo. Is there anything that you would like to add, or does anybody have any questions for Corey regarding his city manager report?
Yes, just not to belabor all kinds of doom and gloom issues, but we did have a sinkhole form on Church Street over the weekend. And I was just going to ask Scott to give us a very brief overview of what they found today out there, because this is going to be yet another expensive repair.
Okay.
Yeah, they have good news. So it's between Cedar Street and Spalding, if I remember correctly, and it's right over top of the sanitary sewer. The sewer in that area is not the best. It is about 100 to 130 feet, if I remember right, to the east of Cedar Street, North Cedar, and we believe that the void is caused by material that has gotten into the sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer main is still operating, and the house lead that is near that area is still operating. It could be broken pipe and so forth, but the soil is kind of holding over top of it for the moment. But there is a bigger hole that you can see as you poke your head down into the sinkhole. So we don't think that this is going to be something that can wait very long. I've already contacted TCI. They've been working with us on some other projects. They've also done some emergency repair work for us before and have been helpful in that regard to be reactive and have the right equipment. We could certainly talk to other locations as well, or other contractors as well. This probably is a little bit bigger than what we would normally bring somebody like Mark Stevens in to do, just because of the magnitude and the trench box and the depth of the sewer and the underground conditions there. That's I guess this is the recommendation, is to go something in that direction. So I anticipate talking with them more thoroughly in the morning, and that this is something that we're going to need to get on in a matter of days, because we don't know how long this will hold open.
Corey, can you follow up with us with an email once Scott has more information and keep us apprised of the situation?
Yes,
I have a question.
We will do that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
Question for Scott. Is this an area where sewer lining would be beneficial or not?
I took a look at the sewer tapes that were done in 2016 from the SAW grant, and they couldn't even get to this point in the line from trying either direction, John, because the whole sewer is dipped down in this area and there are broken pipes and stuff. So the short answer is no.
Okay.
It's going to eventually have to be replaced. But for right now, we probably need to do a spot repair, and then this will need to be replaced in the future.
Right. Now, I know there was sewer work done back, probably 04. Is that correct? 03, 04 through there, water main and sewer. Is that correct?
The water main, but not the sewer at this location.
Not the sewer. Okay.
Yep.
I do know that there's houses through there that have experienced backups, and I know that was used to be jet rotted on a more regular basis back in the day. So,
Yep.
Okay.
That would be due to the dip.
Yep. Okay. I'm sufficient with that answer. I just didn't know if this was something their sewer lining would be beneficial cost wise. You know what I mean?
It is possible that this is also somewhat related to the sewer lead that comes in here, but I think it's probably a complete integrity issue of the sewer lead and the main at this location.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Gilroy, Jeff Weiss has his hand raised.
Yes, Jeff.
Yes, just if this does go bad in the next few days, which sounds like that's a possibility, and if it's a substantial financial burden, how is there a process? And I guess it's for Corey or Tim. If we need emergency repairs, obviously it's 2 weeks before we meet again. How would that work?
Jeff, this is Corey. Our purchasing ordinance has specific provisions for situations like this where I have the authority to make the repairs if it's an emergency situation, and I have to notify council of the action that was taken.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Any other questions for Corey or Scott on this, or Corey's manager report? Okay. Moving along, Chief.
Hey, I'm here. Nothing to report.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there with us. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to report out as far as committee or subcommittee reports?
Just for this is Weiss for NISA. We're meeting for the first time in a couple months. It's going to be a Zoom meeting Thursday at 7.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad to see that they're getting meetings scheduled again.
Jeff,
Anyone else?
when Jeff Weiss,
Yes.
when the agenda was sent out, the Zoom instructions were not included, and I asked for them, but I haven't seen them yet.
Okay.
Do you happen to have them?
I'll check. I believe I do, and I'll forward them to you, Hallie.
Okay. I just wanted to forward them to council.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Hallie, they posted them on the NISA Facebook page, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Hallie, did we have any audience join us?
Monica Schaefer has joined us.
Hi, Monica. We have an opportunity for audience participation.
No, I'm all set. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you. Appreciate having you here this evening. I'll start with council member comments, and Jeff Roland, you're on my screen first.
Right on. Yeah, again, just echoing your sentiments earlier to Scott, that thanks for all that in-depth analysis, confusing issue, but you made it very understandable, and definitely appreciate that. But nothing else after that. Thanks.
All right. Councilman Weiss.
Thanks, Dan. It's unfortunate about the Jubilee. I'm sure you cover it, but thanks for all your hard work on that anyway.
Thank you. Let's see. John Bizzard.
Yeah, I want to say sorry for missing the last couple meetings. Obviously, you see I'm driving home from work and just been busy. And other than that, shout out to class of 2020. They did a postponed graduation. It's supposed to happen in July, is my understanding.
Excellent. Keep us posted on that, John. I'm sure that we'd all like to be able to support that class of
Yep.
graduates.
I do have one question for Scott. The intersection of Putnam and Church, what's the update on the resurfacing of that? That was supposed to happen a couple years ago. The contractor was going to warranty their pavement. Do we have an update when that would be completed, or is that kind of just gone away?
No, it's a good question, John. They were trying to do that work when the subdivision just outside of town, the Brookstone subdivision, was supposed to go, and that still isn't going, and I don't know what its status is. So it's definitely something. I mean, if I'm talking with Carl about this repair, I'm going to be asking him about the other as well.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, John. I appreciate it. Dan Rhines.
As Jeff mentioned, the Jubilee Committee in the last, week and a half or so made our final decision for Jubilee. We looked at a lot of different options to try and have a festival this year. We've had, this would have been our 49th. We'd had 48 years without any interruption. It was a really hard decision to make, and we had looked at a lot of different ways to do it, try and move the whole festival to August. We even entertained at one point we were calling a floating date 3 weeks after whenever the ban on mass gatherings was lifted, to try and do a shortened Jubilee. We finally ran into our insurance renewal, and a decision had to be made at that point. Based on what we knew right now, and we with the plan presented by the governor, we had no way of we couldn't justify spending the money on our insurance planning events that way, with no way of knowing we could get that money back in this year. So we had to make the decision to postpone for next year, but we are open to putting on a smaller Jubilee and adding on an insurance rider for the fall if it looks feasible. But we couldn't put that in stone at this point. So we are looking forward to next year, which, even though we're kind of skipping this year, we're going to count as our 50th, because it'll be 50 years since the centennial and the celebration of this city sesquicentennial, 150 years for Williamston. So we'll still be calling it the 50th Jubilee, but that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate everybody's efforts from the Jubilee Committee. I know it was a hard decision, and it's not an easy one to make. Moving along, we have Gene Smith.
I didn't expect a geology and engineering lesson tonight, but that was pretty refreshing. Learned a lot there, but I don't really have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Bellinger.
I'd just like to compliment all the staff and the service they're giving the community during the COVID restrictions and the excellent work they're providing. I also would like to make note that the farmers market is doing a wonderful job in managing the flow of traffic, getting vendors, and doing that. The Kiwanis also has Flags for America, or Flags for Williamston, up and going. We cleaned the kids lot play area this weekend, and then we also put up the volleyball courts. So the nets are up in the park, and things are opening up and progressing. So congratulations to all the staff and all the hard work they're doing.
I just want to close out by just saying I'm super excited that the executive order has allowed restaurants to officially open this week with patron seating. So I would really ask that you all get out there and support and share that information with family and friends that, you know, our businesses are slowly going through that reopening phase. Also our service businesses within town, as far as salons, nail care, these businesses have really gone through a tremendously long waiting period to be able to reopen their doors. So please watch for that. Support them when you can. Congratulations to the class, Williamston class of 2020, our graduates. I don't know if people saw, but there was a way to adopt a graduate through a Facebook page. And I've just seen a tremendous outpouring of our community, making sure that these kids and I'm glad to hear, John, that there's going to be something going on in July. So again, please keep us posted on that. And, as these executive orders come out, and if there's an increases, I know that our community is going to one another as we continue to go through this. So I just want to say thank you to our city staff from all aspects. Scott, please extend our thank you to all of your guys that are still out there every single day doing what they need to do for the city. And Hallie, Barb, I know, and I'm working remotely, keeping us going. So thank you very much. Corey, thank you for your leadership with staff as well. And summer's here. So let's enjoy it the best that we can and support each other, come together when we can. And that's all I have for this evening. So I will adjourn our meeting this evening at 8:26.